Okay, moving on. When people get together and decide to all vote the same way, they call that a coalition. And the sum of the weights of the voters in a coalition is called the weight of that coalition. And if a coalition has a weight that is greater than or equal to the quota, then that coalition is a winning coalition. So, in this situation here, which we did a little while ago on a previous video, there was one that was like this, where you had a quota of 4, and then you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and obviously 4, it is the quota, but it's also the majority, because if you want something to go your way, you got to have more than half the votes. So this is perfect Survivor stuff. Each person has 1 vote. 4 people have to get together and agree to vote somebody off the island, and they're obviously going to vote. So like if you were to get these 4 people together, they're either going to vote this person off or this person off or that person off, because that's how it works in Survivor. But anywho, you're on a coalition here. It's a group of voters, so they just need 4 votes to make something pass. Of course, on Survivor, it's voting them off the island. Sorry, I love that show. If you haven't been able to tell. Okay, so anywho, you got a town. They got 3 parties, the Republicans, the Democrats, and the Independent. So they're going to use the capital letters of R and D and I instead of constantly writing Republican, Democrat, and Independent. And membership on a town council is proportional to the size of the parties, with the Republicans having 9 members, Democrats have 8, and the Independents only have 3. Parties vote as a single block. That is important. Gonna highlight that for you. Parties vote as a single block. So that means if you're a Republican, all 9 Republicans have to vote the same way, okay? Same thing with the Democrats. All 8 Democrats have to vote the same way. Anyway, and resolutions are passed by a simple majority. Now, if you remember, we did a majority back in or the last section, yeah, when we were doing the plurality with elimination. So if you have 9 plus 8 plus 3, that adds up to 20. And then if you take the 20 and divide it in 2, that gives you 10. You have to have more than half. That's exactly half. So 11 votes is what it'll take to have a simple majority. All right. Now it wants you to list all the possible coalitions and their weights, and then identify any winners. So they made a table. There it is. And first they started with each individual group by itself. Then they put them in pairs of 2, and then they did all 3 together. This is very similar to what we did back in chapter 2, which is the very first chapter we covered in this course, when we had to come up with subsets. Remember that? If I gave you a set of elements and I said find all the subsets, you would start with these here, which are the singles. You would put each element in a set by itself. And then the Republicans had a vote of 9, Democrats had 8 votes, and Independents had 3. But then you had to then do the 2 element subsets, right? Or as I like to call them, the doubles. And if you remember, I started with R and I said put R with D and then R with I, and that takes care of R, and then D and I. Now there's only 3 here, so R and D, R and I, and D and I. And if you add together, R is 9 and D is 8, and that gives you the 17. So that's 17 right there. R is 9 plus I is 3, and that gives you 12. D is 8 and I is 3, and that gives you 11. And then 8, whoops, no, back to R again. R is, oh, sorry, wrong color. And now we're down to the last, because those are the doubles, and then you just have the set itself. Now the only thing you will leave out on this is the empty set. You're not going to use the empty set for voting. That makes no sense. And of course this is 9 plus 8 plus 3, which adds up to 20. Remember, you have to have 11 or more will win. 17, 12, 11, and 20. Those are all winning coalitions. So what did they ask me to do? Let me go back and look real quick. It just says list all the possible coalitions and their weights and identify the winning ones. So that's what we did. All right, what's up next? Okay, now I think I'll do a second video for this because this takes us into another topic. So hopefully you understand that you've got coalitions, and that's a group of voters that all vote the same way, and they do so that they can win. They have to have enough votes to win. But you'll be asked to come up with like all the coalitions, even if they're not winners. You know, so you just do it systematically. You start with the singles, then you do the doubles, then you do the triples. You know, if you've got like 8 of them, that's a lot of subsets. So no worries. I think the most you have to do would be 4. So like instead of, whoops, wrong one. Instead of R, D, and I, maybe they put in another group here. It's not independent, other group. Then you'd have 4 of them. Then you'd have to do a whole set of triples too. And we did do that back in chapter 2. So